Tonight's big stories. The Chinese embassy claims its ambassador was simply misquoted after he received flack for a statement that appeared to threaten the safety of Filipinos in Taiwan. Last week, Wang Xilian made reference to the thousands of OFWs in Taiwan and said that they would be in danger if the Philippines does not oppose Taiwan independence. Political science professor Renato De Castro joins us later in the show for a discussion.
A Senate panel has restarted its inquiry into the killing of Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo. But missing in that hearing is the alleged mastermind, Congressman Arnie Teves. The Senate committee backtracked on its move to allow Teves to virtually participate, citing legal issues. But aside from being tagged as the brains behind the ambush, Teves is also at risk of being designated as a terrorist.
And construction in one of the 4 new EDCA sites is now underway. We'll take a look at how Balabac Island in Palawan is being transformed.
From the nation's capital, I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Sean Yao.
And I'm Regina Lay. This is the big story tonight. Welcome to the show. Some groups and even a senator have called to expel Chinese ambassador to the Philippines, Wang Xilian, over his recent statements that appeared to threaten the safety of OFWs in Taiwan.
But the Chinese embassy in the Philippines defends the ambassador's remarks, saying he was simply, quote, misquoted or misunderstood.
Still, for some analysts, this is not the case. Marian Enriquez with a big story.
The Philippines is advised to unequivocally oppose Taiwan independence rather than stoking the fire by offering the U.S. access to the military bases near the Taiwan Strait if you care about the 150,000 overseas foreign workers.
This statement made by Chinese Ambassador Wang Xilian advising the Philippines to oppose Taiwan independence drew flack over the weekend. Wang asserted that the Taiwan issue is entirely China's internal affair and that they will never allow any third party to meddle. Wang also accused the United States of intending to use the new Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement or EDCA sites to interfere in the situation and advance its anti-China agenda.
Some try to find excuse for the new EDCA sites by citing the safety of the 150,000 Filipino overseas foreign workers in Taiwan. While China is the last country that wishes to see conflict over the strait because people on both sides are Chinese.
This statement did not sit well with Senator Risa Hontiveros, who called it disgraceful. Hontiveros urged Malacanang to tell Beijing to recall the ambassador as soon as possible. For Senator Francis Tolentino, Wang should exercise prudence in the manner he speaks.
It has nothing to do with what is happening in Taiwan. Siguro nagkakamali siya.
The National Security Council meanwhile clarified that the Philippines has no intention to meddle in the China-Taiwan conflict. NSC Assistant Director General Jonathan Malaya admitted, though, that they were surprised by Wang's statement.
We observe the One China policy, and therefore there is no possibility of the Philippines ever interfering in the Taiwan question.
Malaya also explained that the EDCA sites were chosen to secure the territorial integrity of the Philippines. However, the Chinese embassy in the Philippines claims its envoy was misquoted or misinterpreted. But for maritime expert and director of the UP Institute for Maritime Affairs and Law of the Sea, Attorney J. Batong Bakal, Wang's statements were loaded.
Well, he should not have made it in the first place if he did not want to be taken out of context. No? Because it's very clear when you read that statement, however you look at it. No?
Now, should that conflict between China and Taiwan escalate, What is the Philippine government's plan to ensure the safety of Filipinos working in the island? Marian Enriquez with the answer.
Yes, Sean, the Foreign Affairs Department guarantees that there is a contingency plan for Filipinos in Taiwan if ever a war arises. Undersecretary Ed Vega says employers of OFWs in Taiwan are required to ensure the safety of their workers in case of an emergency. The agency notes, though, that they are refraining from giving a statement on the Taiwan issue as they believe it's best to pursue a more diplomatic approach. Commenting on Wang's statement, Vega said any diplomat will try to advance their country's interest, but Vega believes the Chinese envoy does not mean to say that they are going to harm Filipino workers in Taiwan. Sean?
All right, thank you for that, Marian Enriquez.
To weigh in further on the matter, we have with us on the line De La Salle University Political Science Professor Renato De Castro. He's joining us via Zoom. Professor De Castro, thanks for joining us. Welcome to The Big Story. I'm going to get right into it. What did you think of the ambassador's statement? He says he was misquoted or taken out of context. I note that he was reading off a prepared speech in perfect English. What do you think?
I also read and heard the same thing. I don't think it's misquoted. It is. The message is we should do something which is actually contrary to our policy of not intervening in the the Taiwan issue, that to oppose Taiwan's independence. That's why the policy is not to intervene, to maintain the status quo as it is. But then, of course, he mentioned that if we really care about the 150,000 Filipinos. So it's obviously referring to the fact that it's a veiled threat, in whatever form.
Right. Professor, Senator Risa Ontiveros has already made a call asking Malacanang to recall or quote-unquote expel Ambassador Huang Xilian, send him back to Beijing. What do you think of this move, of this call? Do you think the government will heed it?
I think it's too drastic. Probably it's time for the Assistant Secretary of the Asia-Pacific Affairs to summon him. So that's the best thing. Ask him to explain. So that's how diplomacy works. I think that would be too drastic to declare him persona non grata.
Just taking a look at what happened with the laser pointing incident a few months back, and then this one saying that the Chinese envoy was simply misquoted. Do you think they're also employing gray zone tactics when it comes to diplomacy, ironically?
Oh, no, that's what you call the wolf warrior diplomacy. That's a different thing. It's part of the gray zone, but you have a specific term, wolf warrior diplomacy.
And what does that mean?
The diplomat had to take a very offensive action that, of course, began during the time of the pandemic to really put the ball on the other person's court. So this is how I analyze it. Very strong, in a way, criticizing us for an entirely, domestic matter. EDCA, although it pertains to our relationship with the United States, the EDCA sites are inside Philippine territory. So he took a very strong position in a way that is, of course, a challenge to our sovereignty and other statements he gave.
Right.
So that's
Professor?
classic. Yeah.
Do you think, because of course, obviously they perceive that these additional EDCA sites, with 3 being closer to Taiwan than the West Philippine Sea, of course they perceive this also as some kind of soft threat coming from the Philippines and maybe with the United States as well. So that is in retaliation to that?
No, not retaliation, warning us, against expressing their alarm, which is, of course, misplaced. Because this is one thing I pointed out. China always emphasized the importance of sovereignty and non-interference in the domestic affairs of other countries. But clearly, he's showing the fact that when it comes to the China's dealing with the Philippines, this, of course, does not apply. China is free to basically, in a way, meddle in our domestic affairs because whether those sites are located in Batanes, whether those sites are located in Ilocos, one thing is clear, those sites are within Philippine territory. Unlike, of course, those artificial islands that they have militarized in the South China Sea. And of course, 4 of them are located in our exclusive economic zone, right?
Right. Okay, we're going to have to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for joining us, De La Salle University Political Science Professor Renato De Castro.
Meanwhile, the Senate begins its probe into the Degamo murder, still without Congressman Arnie Teves. The Justice Department, for its part, is pulling out all stops for Teves to surrender. Mobile journalist Michelle Gilyang with the details.
Negros Oriental Congressman Arnie Teves was a no-show in the Senate hearing on Monday. The Senate Committee on Public Order reversed its decision to allow Teves to attend the hearing virtually. The panel cited legal issues over the move to bar him from the hearing on the Degamo slay.
Conferencing from Philippine embassies or consulates and into those involving criminal cases involving Filipinos overseas. It has to be done inside the premises of Philippine embassies and consulates. Bilang na bilang lang po yung po pwedeng kung saan pwedeng humingi ng mutual legal assistance ang committee ito para mag-appear siya sa isang embahada.
Meanwhile, the Department of Justice says there is no arrest warrant for Teves just yet, but they are looking to consider him a terrorist under the anti-terror law.
We will have to make the world smaller for him. And that is really the purpose of the anti-terror law, is that the whole world will actually not tolerate any act of terrorism.
The DOJ added that the purchase and distribution of firearms constitute as evidence for a person to be declared a terrorist under the anti-terror law. Recall that firearms were seized in several properties owned by the Teves family. Meanwhile, authorities are looking into the possibility of a mole in Degamo's security detail.
That's what the CIDJ is investigating. But up to now, there is no result yet on our investigation, and we have no valid information up to now kung meron talagang mga mall na nagtimbre doon sa mga suspect nung pumasok sila kung saan yung location ni ex-Governor Degamo.
The DILG said all 11 suspects in the killing of former Governor Roel Degamo have been arrested, a majority of which are ex-military men.
A lot of heavy accusations now against Congressman Teves, but what does his camp have to say? We spoke to Michelle Gilyang earlier for an update.
Gretch, Congressman Teves was able to react to this development through the press conference of his lawyer, Attorney Ferdinand Topacio, earlier today. Teves simply dismissed the terrorist tag against him and claimed that he is not afraid of getting arrested. His camp, however, is dismayed over the Senate decision to bar his virtual attendance. There is still no word on Teves' whereabouts. There are reports of him being spotted in Cambodia, but some claim to have seen him in South Korea. For now, officials are still urging Teves to come home, surrender, and face the music. Gretch?
Thanks for that update, Michelle.
In other news, former Bucor Chief Gerald Bantag and his alleged second-in-command Ricardo Zulueta have been declared as fugitives by the National Police. Arrest warrants have been issued against the two over the murder of broadcaster Percy Lapid and a beleaguered inmate believed to be the middleman in the killing. Authorities have lodged a manhunt after failing to serve the warrants in Bantag and Zulueta's declared residences. The PNP is focusing its search in the Cordillera region where the two are believed to be staying. Bantag has been seen in Baguio last year where he's racked up support from residents. Police expect to have both Bantag and Zulueta under custody before PNP Chief Rodolfo Azurin retires on April 24. Meanwhile, the PNP is considering putting the alleged gunman, Joel Escorial, under witness protection. Escorial will be testifying against the other suspects in the killing.
Yung case po, nakabase po doon sa testimony ng ating gunman. So malaki po talaga yung maitutulong nito para maparusahan po talaga kung sino po yung may utos yung pagpaslang kay Percy Lapid. So mas maganda na mas maproteksyonan po natin si Escorial po.
Up next, the PNP is set to file charges against 49 police officers for allegedly being involved in the cover-up of irregularities committed by anti-drug operatives. The details when we return. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching The Big Story here on One News.
Multiple charges await 49 police officers involved in the alleged cover-up in the 6.7 billion peso drug haul in October last year. PNP Chief Rodolfo Azurin Jr. meanwhile has a piece of advice to DILG Chief Benher Abalos. Brian Basa with the details.
These policemen were caught on camera loading boxes in the trunk of a car and on motorcycles during an anti-drug operation in Tondo, Manila. After a 6-month probe, the PNP Special Investigation Task Group reveals millions of pesos worth of confiscated shabu were stolen by men in uniform.
It turned out that the contents of the two luggages were more or less 42 kilograms of shabu, with an estimated standard drug price of 285,600,000 pesos.
The owner of the car in question is a member of the drug enforcement group. The stolen shabu was supposed to be a reward for a confidential informant.
Kung makikita natin, hindi lang yung the manner of movement or the loading of luggages is not something like equivalent to the 42 kilograms.
Because of this, 49 drug enforcers will be facing several criminal and administrative charges. Among these police officers is relieved Drug Enforcement Director Brigadier General Narciso Domingo.
Mas mataas ang kanyang haharaping kaso sa administratibo.
Domingo told News 5 via SMS that he's dismayed that he'll be charged despite his accomplishments in the operation. But Cruz maintains Domingo's shortcomings are part of his command responsibility.
Pwede kang parusahan sa ginawa mo at pwede ka rin parusahan sa hindi mo ginawa. And we expect him to do the thing that should have been done by a director to prevent or even the recovery of this 42. Dapat naiayos yun.
Meanwhile, PNP Chief Police General Rodolfo Azurin Jr. says there's no attempt to cover up the illegal drug case involving now dismissed Police Master Sergeant Rodolfo Mayo Jr. Interior Secretary Benher Abalos revealed last week the alleged cover-up using some CCTV clips of the arrest.
There was no attempt to cover up or to exculpate Police Master Sergeant Rodolfo Mayo from his involvement in the illegal drug operations.
Azurin calls on Abalos to focus on the real enemy. The DILG chief earlier said more high-ranking police officers were involved in the illegal drug case.
Let us focus on the real enemy. Take a second look on the people who may be feeding him misinformation to cast doubt on the integrity of the PNP organization, which is also under his authority.
Now, have all the drugs from the Manila raid been collected and recovered by the PNP? Let me bring in Brian again to tell us more.
Regina, the police are still searching for more missing shabu. These were believed to be stolen from more than a ton of drugs seized from the Manila raid in October. Major General Eliseo Cruz says 990 kilograms of shabu reported confiscated from the raid were all that was left. That figure doesn't include the over 42 kilos reportedly taken but later on returned or surrendered by 2 non-commissioned officers. Regina.
Thanks for that, Brian Basa.
Construction works in one of the country's 4 new EDCA sites are underway. Let's get a glimpse of how things are going in Balabac Island in Palawan in this report by Brian Castillo.
Traveling to Balabac Island from Puerto Princesa took our news team 6 hours. 2 hours were spent on a speedboat. We wanted to see how things are going in one of the 4 new EDCA sites in the country. Construction work has started. Most of the land have been leveled to make way for the new military facilities. The EDCA site in Balabac spans 300 hectares and is now under the care of the AFP Western Command. The area is considered a strategic location in both the economic and security fronts.
So marami pong shipping na dumadaan dito. It's actually a shipping lane. Kaya our presence, our armed forces presence there would also mean stronger and more effective posturing in terms of security.
Construction in Balabac started back in 2019 with plans to put up an airfield that will serve both military and civilian trips. Currently, it's the Philippine government that has been financing the construction. But since the area is now an EDCA site, the United States is expected to chip in.
Patuloy naman po ang pagbibuild ng infrastructure project na ito. But with EDCA around, we are also seeing some opportunities na baka matulungan din tayo ng ating mga kaalyado sa mga proyektong parating pa dito sa particular site na ito sa Balabac.
We were able to talk to some of the residents there regarding the military development in their island. Some of them believe that having the island as an EDCA site would be good for security.
Parang kakampi tayo kasi kita-kita na naman natin kung anong mga ginagawa ng mga Chinese na yan sa atin, lalo-lalo sa mga mangingisda natin.
However, some are still concerned about the possibility of being entangled in conflict.
Kapag may oras na nagkakuan dito sa atin sa Palawan, unang target ay dito sa amin. Kami ang apektado po doon.
But the AFP Western Command says having an additional EDCA site in Palawan would improve disaster response in the communities there. The EDCA site in Balabac Island is now the second base set up in Palawan, next to Antonio Bautista Air Base in Puerto Princesa. The area is considered crucial for Philippine defense, given its location along the West Philippine Sea. For News 5, Brian Castillo. We are One News.
Up next, the city of Manila is looking into reviving the mandatory use of face masks. We'll discuss that and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
You're still watching the big story here on One News. Welcome back. Key PLDT executives, including its CFO, have taken an early exit in the aftermath of the company's overspending mess. The telco disclosed to the stock exchange today that its chief financial officer and senior vice president, Annabel Chua, filed for early retirement, which took effect Sunday. Chua had been on leave since last December when news broke about PLDT's budget overrun. SVP and network head Mario Tamayo likewise opted for early retirement effective last Friday. Meanwhile, the company's chief procurement officer and SVP Mary Rose de la Paz opted for voluntary resignation. PLDT said its internal probe found no evidence of fraud in its budget overrun, which happened between 2019 to 2022. The company also doesn't see the overspending issue as having an impact on its bottom line this year. PLDT shares are up nearly 2% in today's trading.
The city government of Manila may review its policy on the use of face masks after it observed a surge in COVID-19 cases. Mayor Honey Lacuna Pangan said the city has been recording an increase in COVID-19 cases in the last few weeks. As of April 17, a total of 85 active cases from the city districts were reported. Lacuna Pangan called on residents to continue wearing face masks and to get vaccinated against COVID-19. The city government said it will continue to observe the COVID-19 data closely in the next few weeks to evaluate if it will be necessary to reimpose the use of face masks indoors and outdoors.
Kung tutusin, hindi naman po ganun kalaki ang pagtaas, pero tumaas pa rin po. Yun ang nakakatakot. Kasi for the past few weeks, bumababa na po ang kaso. Ngayon, biglang sunod-sunod na araw na tumataas po mga cases. So mag-iingat po tayo.
Well, Mayor Honey is, of course, I think the only medical doctor that is also a mayor.
Point. That's good to know.
That's probably why she's first. It's not surprising that she's thinking ahead. Yeah.
I mean, if you take a look at the number of cases, you may think there shouldn't be any alarm because it's under the hundreds. But if you also take a look at the geography of Manila and how there's little space, people live in small, cramped areas, you can understand why she would feel alarm over it because it affects, people's daily wages if they have to skip work.
Yeah,
if COVID-19 spreads again.
Exactly. We're looking at Okta research numbers here. It's at 60.5% now as of April 1. And of course,
the Holy Week holidays have
the other
probably
side of
spread
that, let's not forget, is that we test a lot less now than we did a year ago.
That's exactly what I spoke to Guido David from Okta around that time, and he said, it's not a cause for alarm. Again, the infections are not that severe, but let's not forget that late last week, the DOH did confirm that Omicron XBB 1.9.1 is now here with 54 reported cases from random testing and genome sequencing.
But hardly anyone tests now. That's the point, right?
That's the thing. So you just multiply it in your head. Just by how many people do you know at the moment with COVID-19? I know quite a number.
But I hope she was, just giving a silent threat like the Chinese envoy.
Put on your masks so I don't make it a rule.
Yeah. We hope that's about it. Just imagine, right? Having to wear.
Use your own judgment and put on your mask when you can. If you have symptoms, stay at home.
Suffice it to say, I'm gonna keep, I think, a mask in my bag nowadays, just to put it on just in case you don't feel comfortable in
crowded
whatever
places.
Yeah,
I still do anyways.
Always good to have one.
Yeah. Agree.
Now, before we go, guys, one of the country's most popular shows, Face to Face, is set to make its long-awaited return to TV5. During the show's media conference, new host Carla Estrada said that she is excited about her very first public service program. She will be joined by Alex Calleja, who will serve as the show's mediator. Attorney Lorna Capunan, Dr. Camille Garcia, and Dr. Love will form the trio of advisors, or the trio Tagapayo. TV5 and Signal executives have also expressed their excitement on the return of the show. Face to Face will premiere on May 1 with new episodes airing Mondays through Fridays at 11 a.m. and is produced by Signal's 1PH and 1 Youth.
I wanted to elevate the conversation. And the way to do that is to make sure that there are multiple perspectives, right? Kasi yung mga issue pwede mong atakihin sa napakaraming anggulo, 'di ba? So, yung mga tagapayo natin, plus si Alex, plus Carla, hopefully will be able to make the conversation richer.
Ito talaga yung gusto ko, even before, na sinasabi ko, sana magkaroon ako ng show na parang na ganito, na public service, na talagang napapakita ko at na nakakatulong ako, hindi man sa mga material lang na bagay, pati sa mga words of wisdoms. Ako ang magiging mama ninyong lahat.
Well, we're all eagerly awaiting the launch of this new show. And that is the big story tonight. For more updates, follow News 5, the Philippine Star and Business World online. You may also log on to onenews.ph for more in-depth analyses. I'm Regina Lay.
The big story is also available via Signal Play. Make a free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News anytime, anywhere. I'm Sean Yao. Stay safe, Philippines.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. We are One News, all sides, all the time.